Arsenal have been back to their brilliant best in the last two games, but just how good is the team that's been assembled over the past 3 years, and how many of these players would get into our best ever side, the Arsenal Invincibles team? Let's get into it. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal content. My name is Mark, and as you heard at the top, I'm going to be kind of talking through today a question I ask myself quite a lot. Is how good are this team? How good is the squad that we've assembled over the past 3 years? And for a bit of fun, what I'm going to do today is talk about how many of these players would get into the invincible team of 03-04. Lots of people are still talking about the Sporting game. We've already reviewed that. I can't preview the West Ham game really until I know a little bit more about the lineups, and we're going to be doing the West Ham game on Sunday. So I thought, why not ask a little bit of a fun question and enjoy the middle of the week short that we always do in between games and do something a bit different. So, how many of these players would get into the Invincibles lineup? Just for a reminder, not that any Arsenal fans are going to need reminding about this lineup. Jens Lehmann in goal. Laurent at right back, Kolo Touré and Sol Campbell in the middle, Ashley Cole at left back. The midfield was Ljungberg, Vieira, Gilberto Silva, Pires, and up front, our best 2 players ever, in my opinion, Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp. So there are not many weaknesses in that team. I've listed our current best lineup, and I know this has got there is some debate around this, but Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Partey, Rice, Ødegaard, Saka, Havertz, Martinelli. So the exact team that played against Sporting the other night. I do think that is our best lineup. You got to feel for Ben White in that case, maybe. And I think you've got to also feel for Mikel Merino in that kind of argument. They both are probably the players that have the biggest case to be in that best 11, but you can disagree with that, but I think those players are the ones that would be trying to get into this Invincibles team, the ones that we'd certainly put forward right now based on form, based on where they are. I'm going to talk about this in context of how they've been over the last 3 seasons. It's not a flash in the pan of where they are now, but it's actually, we've built this team up, and what have they achieved over a period of time? Would that be enough to get them in against the likes of Thierry Henry and Patrick Vieira, for example? I'm going to start with goalkeeper, and unfortunately, I don't think, for David Raya at least, I don't think he's anywhere near Jens Lehmann. Jens Lehmann is actually my favourite Arsenal goalkeeper ever. I don't think he's the best Arsenal goalkeeper ever, but he's my favourite. He had so much personality, and I know David Raya is doing a fantastic job, but Jens Lehmann was a cut above, and the guy was ridiculously brave. He would go at the feet of anyone, and he had a bit of needle to him, so I absolutely loved him. If we go across the back line, Laurent, obviously a huge fan's favourite, Kolo Touré, Sol Campbell and Ashley Cole. It was a hell of a back 4 back in 2004, and I think there's 2 players who absolutely cannot be touched in that, and that is Sol Campbell and Ashley Cole. As good as our back 4 is now, those guys were absolutely... I mean, Cole is the best left back the Premier League has ever seen, and he did a lot of work at Chelsea after we sold him, and I know that hurts a lot of Arsenal fans, especially since we got so little for him. Ashley Cole, as he's called, but we have to recognise what he did in that period, and he was absolutely fantastic, and he was one of those players that just dominated his position. There really was no contest when you were talking about the best left back in the world at that time. Even with Roberto Carlos, he was probably coming towards the end of his career at that time, but he had just been in that conversation. I think Ashley Cole was clear of him. Sol Campbell, similar, not quite to the level of Cole, but was absolutely brilliant. Covered ground like I've never seen a centre-back cover ground. I think the 2 that are at risk are Laurent and Touré. Now, I don't think Timber is better than Laurent. I don't think Ben White's better than Laurent. However, I think there is a really good argument that Touré could shift to right back. He did play in a lot of different positions over his career, and William Saliba slots in next to Sol Campbell. What a centre-back pairing that would have been, right? So my lineup, if I could take players out of the current team and put them in the Invincibles team, my back four would become Kolo Touré at right back, William Saliba and Sol Campbell at centre back, and Ashley Cole at left back. And I think we'd be able, not that it was a trend at the time, but we would have been able to kind of go into that elbow defence and have Cole just absolutely bombing on. He had a really free role under Arsene Wenger. He would have had an even more free role in this mythical world I'm talking about. And you would have ended up with a back three of Campbell, Saliba and Touré. Formidable. Absolutely formidable. And that would have brought that kind of modern age feel of the centre-backs playing at full-back and all of that sort of stuff, with Touré out at right-back. I think he would do a very similar job to what Ben White does for us and what Jurrien Timber does for us, but he would have really been that. He was an exceptional defender, Kolo Touré, and I think that back four with William Saliba slotted in there. Who's getting past that? Who's getting past that? We can talk all day about how brilliant William Saliba is, but put him next to Sol Campbell as an insurance policy. Wow. I mean, I think Laurent was brilliant. He's unfortunate to come out. I think Gabriel has been absolutely stunning. He would be just behind those guys for me when you're comparing these sets of players that we're talking about. Incredible players. And yeah, I think Saliba, he just pips Gabriel for me, and I love the idea of Touré moving to right back. But on to midfield. Freddie Ljungberg, Patrick Vieira, Gilberto Silva, Robert Pires. First things first, Gilberto Silva, for me, is the most underrated Arsenal player of modern times. A really, really influential, brilliant player. And actually, Patrick Vieira stole the limelight in some senses because he was so dynamic and brilliant and had the huge battles with Roy Keane. But I mentioned on the last pod, you have to have facilitators to these star players. And Gilberto Silva and Edu, to some extent, when Edu played in that spot, facilitated Patrick Vieira so well. And they gave him the freedom to go roaming wherever he wanted and dominate games because they were that kind of tactical linchpin in the midfield. So absolutely brilliant, Gilberto Silva. I really, really like him. Robert Pires, again, I don't think Martinelli on the left is going to usurp Robert Pires. Vieira, he's not coming out. So I think the players at risk in the midfield are Ljungberg and Gilberto. Like I say, I love Gilberto. So I think it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to start on the right-hand side with Freddie Ljungberg, another player I absolutely loved, our Mohican winger who did so much up and down that right-hand side. But for me, I think Bukayo Saka would drop in absolutely perfectly on that right wing because he does the dirty work back that Freddie Ljungberg did. He can also get into the box and be a threat like Freddie Ljungberg could, but I think he would bring an extra element of guile to that team, which imagine if that team had had Bukayo Saka in it. Absolutely lethal. I don't think we need to even talk about Bukayo Saka's numbers. He is one of the youngest players in our history to 100 goals and assists. He would have really complemented Dennis Bergkamp so well, I think, down that side. And I don't think for me Freddie Ljungberg could argue that. I don't think that's an arguable position. Remember, this is all about how they've been over the last 3 years. Saka's output has been fantastic, really, really impressive, and he's grown and grown and grown, and he still shows capacity to develop even further. So I would put Bukayo Saka in there. I think the only other argument is, do you put Declan Rice in for Gilberto Silva? And I just don't think you can yet. I think Declan Rice has an Arsenal career ahead of him that will take him there and will put him in the upper echelons of Arsenal midfields, especially when we kind of work out what is his role. Is he a 6? Is he an 8? Where's he going to spend his Arsenal career? I think he'll sign 2 more contracts here. He will have a long time at Arsenal Football Club. I don't think he's there yet. And, we're talking about what he's done over the last 3 years. He actually had he arrived with us last year. He was incredible last year. Looked a steal at £105 million. He maybe hasn't achieved that quite this year. And I think he will get there. He's got fitness issues. That's widely spoken about and discussed. He had the toe issue, but he hasn't quite got there yet. And I think it's just too early to put Declan Rice in that slot. But maybe one day, if I came back and did this pod in 2 years' time, I can certainly see a world where Declan Rice is going in there for Gilberto Silva, even though Gilberto Silva, like I said, is absolutely one of the most underrated Arsenal players of all time. Dennis Bergkamp and Thierry Henry, it's going to be difficult to use up either of these lads. I'm going to throw Ødegaard into this conversation because I think Ødegaard would potentially take the Dennis Bergkamp role. Kai Havertz is obviously the striker, so we're looking at comparing him with Thierry Henry. Very sorry, Kai. That's just not going to happen. Not going to change that. And so I think the only question is Ødegaard for Bergkamp. And Ødegaard has been, this year and previous years, been incredible. And I think watching him is another level, and he is transformative to this Arsenal side. But we cannot forget that is exactly what Dennis Bergkamp was for us, and he was unbelievable. And it's another tough one, but I'm going to say Martin Ødegaard, as brilliant as he has been, he needs a bit longer. It's the same scenario as Declan Rice. I don't think he's quite there yet. So I think most people would agree with that as well. Probably on the trajectory to get there, but he still has to go and get there. He still has to go and do it. As much as it pains me to say anything that could even remotely be framed as negative around Martin Ødegaard, I think he doesn't quite meet the standards that this team set yet. So my combined team, Invincibles plus this team, based on what they've done over the past 3 years, would be Jens Lehmann, Kolo Toure moved to right back, William Saliba, Sol Campbell, Ashley Cole, Bukayo Saka, Patrick Vieira, Gilberto Silva, Robert Pires, Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp. Only 2 additions. No matter how much we love this current team and how far we think they could go, I've only included 2. And I think that basically says, obviously it talks about how good the Invincibles were, but it also says that the best years of this team are ahead of them. And I do think if I sat down and did this pod in 2 years' time, absolutely Declan Rice would be in there for Gilberto Silva, and absolutely Martin Ødegaard would have to get in there somewhere. Whether we would find a spot for him instead of Dennis Bergkamp or alongside Dennis Bergkamp, I don't know. But yeah, so that is just a bit of fun as we wait for the West Ham game to come round. We play them on Saturday. Obviously, I'm going to be reviewing the game on Sunday morning. I'm getting that out for you guys as early as I possibly can. If you have enjoyed this short episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, please do drop us a follow wherever you get your podcasts, and come and follow me on Blue Sky as well, Arsenal-Unfiltered. And send it in, as well, in terms on Blue Sky, in terms of what would you do to answer this question? Which players from the current team would you put in the Invincibles 11? I think you can comment on Spotify now as well. So get in touch on Blue Sky, comment on Spotify, but most importantly, because we are trying to grow the community, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, so you will see the next episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, which will be the West Ham review, in your chosen podcast provider. All that's left to say, I think, then, is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I will speak to you very, very soon, hopefully after a extremely convincing Arsenal win versus West Ham. Goodbye.